I'd like to declare the meeting open. Welcome to councillors, staff and visitors. We have visitors here this evening at our special council meeting right on 5:30. So declare the meeting open. We have a disclaimer. I think most of our visitors are able to view the meeting agenda. There is nearly a full page there with a disclaimer. So feel free to read that, and the council meeting is visually recorded. Item 2 is attendance, apologies and approved leave of absence. Attendance, we're all present, as in councillors. Apologies, we don't have any apologies. CEO. 2, 3, approved leave of absence. We don't have any. Item 3, declaration of interest, which there are none. Thank you. Item 4 is public question time. 4.1, response to previous public questions taken on notice. Don't have any. Item 4.2 is public questions. So great to have some public here, and feel free to ask questions, and bear in mind that happy to take questions, but once question time is finished, that's it as far as input from the public. So welcome. Has anyone got a question? And if you've got a question, could you please stand up and state your name and whereabouts or where you reside? It doesn't have to be your exact address.
I'm Deborah Fisher. I live on Stafford Street, which is now different name, Geo. I'm actually asking a question on behalf of my son, who's 5, who owns his house on the Flora Street. I don't know if this is the venue, so I'm happy to be taken on notice if it's not. His question is a little bit about the rates, which obviously is coming, but he's having some problem with a derelict house on 27 Lefroy Street. He and other neighbours have made numerous attempts to find out what is happening with the derelict house. Many years ago, it had a demolition order on it with fencing and a requirement to keep it to a certain standard. Whilst the asbestos has been removed and constant inroads are made to keep the nest down, there are rats. It's a fire hazard. There's vagrants. There's a lot of tomcats which might not be part of that particular house. He is concerned because he is looking to sell his house in the future, how that impacts his rates, how that impacts his ability to sell his house due to the frontage. He spent a lot of money on his house, tidying his own house up. He's a young man trying to make inroads, and he really would like to know how much longer that structure as it stands is allowed to be. If he has it just seems to be a never-ending piece of string. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Sorry, we'll try and fix our door sooner than later. It makes it a bit noisier. The question to the CEO.
Thank you. Look, I can answer your question. If there's a bit more, I'm happy to take it on notice and come back to you and give you some explanations and let you know what's happening.
So thank you for that. We will work as hard as we can to improve that situation, which obviously doesn't sound that good. Thank you. Any other questions from the public?
Yeah, the amount the rates proposed.
Sorry, just your name.
Yeah, John Mickey.
Thanks, John.
3127 Midlands Road. The proposed percentage of rates go up, and I'm talking the total figure, not the value in the dollar or the actual valuation, just the actual percent.
So you're asking for the actual percentage?
Yep.
So we are working at this stage on 6.5%, which will be split, and I might ask our Travis Bate from RSM to add to that. So that'll be on average 6.5%. That may not be on all of the UV or the GRV. Travis, are you able to give us a better explanation to all of this, please?
Okay. So the budget's been prepared on the basis of an overall 6.5% increase in rate revenue, which is across GRV and UV properties, because that's the two ways that properties are rated. So that's an overall increase of that 6.5%. The way that applies to individual properties may differ in the UV categories depending on what the valuation of that property has been. On the GRB properties, there's not been any revaluations, so that 6.5% would be what would flow through on those GRB properties.
Why is it so high? The inheritance 4.5.
Why is it so high? We've got the Shire, all Shires have a statutory obligation to try and balance the budget. And our costs, like most businesses, have gone up. They've been 5% the last 2 years. And unfortunately, we've probably had to creep it up to 6.5% this year to cover our various improvements that we are trying to make throughout the Shire. You run a business, John, we run a business as well. We're all of our businesses across Australia, the Shire, etc., are struggling to keep costs down. And at times last year, we were up to between 10 and 20% understaffed, which means hopefully this year we'll be able to replace most of those staff and we have to pay their wages. So unfortunately, we're at this stage looking at a 6.5% increase.
So we should have had a saving last year if we run stuff by 10 or 20%.
Yes. Yes, but we probably use that up with contractors. Is that right?
Yes, when we have staff vacancies, we use contractors to fill those jobs to get the work going.
Yeah. No, thank you.
So can I say or ask the question?
Yes.
So-
Sorry, so your name and where you live, please.
Jennifer Murray, I live in Laura.
Good, thank you.
So 6.5% increase this year on rates. Wasn't that the case last year?
I think last year was 5% and the year before was 5%.
So they're going to be 5 or 6% every year.
Oh, look, we would hope not. One of the things the Shire, all regional shires across Australia, actually all shires, city councils are struggling with, what we call our FAGs, which are federal assistant grants. Traditionally, they've been 1% of their federal budget's spending, and our federal budget at this stage has dropped that down to 0.049. So that makes up a lot of our road program, those federal assistant grants. If that goes down to 0.49, which it's most likely to, we're way behind as far as maintaining our infrastructure and roads and improving them the way we'd like to. So we will be in a bit of pain, and I think all councils across Australia concerned by those federal assistant grants going from 1% down to 0.049. So we, as I said, are in a bit of pain because we're very reliant on state and federal funding, regional shires like ours.
So this is the roads.
No, this is for everything. Just balancing a budget. We've got a statutory obligation to balance our budget. So that means not to make a big profit, not to make a big loss. So we try and Travis, you might help me out here. We try and get to a certain point of where we, as a Shire, can balance our budget, and we work out the rates accordingly. Can you explain it any better than that, Travis?
And that's a pretty good explanation of it. So the budget's calculated based on what expenditure the Shire is expected to incur for normal operations, what's expected to be spent on capital projects, and also any transfers to and from reserves. So when we talk about reserves, that's money that's put aside by council for specific projects in the future. This budget's not putting any money aside for any future capital projects. It's been just getting to that balanced position, which we need to do from a statutory perspective. So, there's not anything extra aside to reserves, and the majority of capital programs are all tied to secure grant funding for at least part of those projects. So there's not been a lot of Shire funded expenditure within the budget that's been presented tonight.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, I think so.
Thank you. Any other questions?
from groundwater, obviously. I am just going to ask why such a big increase, if we were using so many contractors last year, why such a big increase in your staffing and your wages? And the other one is, why aren't there, we've had plenty of projects that we've had plans drawn up for, and being considered. Why haven't we got any capital works projects happening, such as the Ovals, part, or even just the club rooms for the footy, basically, and you know, the supposed extensions that was going to happen in Roberts Street for the caravan park that plans came out for. So I understand that you have to be fiscal, but I don't understand how things get put on the back burner constantly, but we still get charged a higher rate for our rates. And main one is, why is there such an increase in the wages?
Thank you. I've got three questions there. So the staff, so we've been understaffed. I might ask Gavin to elaborate on that, please.
Yes, for the last 3 years, we've been about 20% understaffed. And those jobs have been filled by contractors, and they are typically more expensive than our employed staff. And when the opportunity arises to fill those jobs with permanent staff members, we do that because we want to keep employees in town. And it's basically what we do, but it's a balancing act that happens day in, day out, from one end of the year to the next. We have a slight opportunity this year to fill some of those vacancies with long-term employees, which we'll do, and which we've started to do. And that's part of, I guess, the difficulty we have of creating stability in our workforce. But at present, we're looking quite confidently at what will happen over the next 12 months. In terms of the projects, one of the things that people don't understand is that all of our grants are conditional on showing an equivalent sum of money to match government grants. And if we can't match those grants, we can't borrow the money we need to build the infrastructure. And that's really quite simply the problem. We have, as you say, a number of projects on the books that have been costed, obviously now need to be recosted, but we don't have the corresponding money to be able to borrow and invest in those projects going forward. There is a little bit of a difference in respect to some of those projects, and they are particularly the Commonwealth Government funded projects. In the last 5 years, the Commonwealth has given us the money without a co-contribution, which has made an enormous difference to what we've done and how we do it. The state government gives us between 30 and 45% co-contribution. So it's significantly more difficult to build a state-funded project than it is to build a Commonwealth-funded project. So if you look at all of our recent projects in Moora, those projects have been almost totally funded by the Commonwealth Government over the time that we've built them, which makes a big difference.
In the documents, is it stated the projects that the shuttle have taken over the last? Not so much over the, I don't know, I didn't have a really good read, but all I just saw was that I know when I've been here in past meetings that there have been all these projects and plans arrive. And then there are, you know, I think it's roads and there's $17 million worth of, or $12.7 million of capital works, infrastructure, community assets, 3.1 for road and drainage, which would be gone in a minute in this town, 9.2 for land and buildings, 3.4 for the combined rec centre, WAC housing, impact renewal projects. But it just seems that we've supposedly had the money or had money for all these projects in past years, but suddenly that money's not there, but neither are the projects.
Well,
I think it's a little bit inaccurate from the point of view that, you know, we've built the We've got Kids Institute, Childcare Centre. We've just finished stage one of the aerodrome. We've done the sewage system, pumping system. So we've done a lot of projects that have worked out. Spent just over $12 million. But the thing about those is that they are Commonwealth funded projects effectively, which is why we've been able to do them. And I guess that's a bit hard sometimes for people to understand, but because the Commonwealth funds us in a much more collegial and transparent manner, we're able to do things. Their projects are funded generally fully, or a very small percentage is required from the Shire. But we just get on with it. Really simple, really straightforward. We have no complications. And that's why those jobs get done.
So if I can just add, with the road network and the sewage, etc., I look at those, the Shire's investing in the Shire, the whole Shire, in the road network, the sewage. It's an investment because it allows businesses to run their businesses more efficiently and safely.
I was just going to say, we also need to do some of those works because we need to meet the compliance capacity levels. We can't just sit here with a filling sewage system and not do anything about build future capacity.
So while we're talking about roads, can I just ask, is it the Shire or the main roads with down Garden Street, the south end of Garden Street, with all main roads?
It's a state road, isn't it?
Main road.
So what is the issue there? What's been happening there? The Shire must have some sort of input or say as to what's going on there. And
that road is suspected of having a major leak under the road, and Main Roads is looking at options for the repair of that road. But it looks as though probably the worst case scenario is a significant amount of the road has to be taken up.
again, yeah.
And that's in the state budget, not ours.
So the Shire's hands are tied as to timeframes with that sort of thing and how
We're
quickly it gets
completely
done.
dependent on Main Roads,
And water corp,
to a lesser degree water.
right? If it's a water corp leak,
Yes, it's a water company. There'll need to be a coordination of funding for both agencies to do that work.
And I guess that the issue's been put in, it's quite dangerous.
We make constant representations to Water Corp and to Main Roads about the state of the road and the risk that it poses.
Are trucks still using that road? I think
Yes.
I've still seen.
it's a RAV7, what we call a RAV7. It's a RAV7 route for heavy haulage. It's the main heavy haulage route through Mora.
Can it not be diverted?
I'm not, no,
RAV7's what I
I
think.
don't think Main Roads, that they'd be more keen to fix the problem than diverting heavy traffic up to 36.5 metres. And what we find is these government departments don't always talk to each other as well as we would like. So you'll always have a bit of friction between Main Roads blaming Water Corp and vice versa. We would love it if they worked a bit better together and just fixed the problem.
So not all roads are governed by the Main Roads, are they? The
Connecting roads into more.
So we have
Connecting roads
Shire roads,
Yeah.
state roads, and Commonwealth roads. The Great Northern Highway I'd classify as a Commonwealth road.
Yeah.
The Mora Whalebing roads, a state road, and the other smaller ones would be classified as Shire roads. But we are still quite reliant on funding from state and federal for all of the roads. And if you look at the pastoral shires, where there is that they are nearly totally reliant on federal and state funding because their rate base from the stations is minuscule compared to their operating budget.
Mm.
And the bigger ones like Stirling City Council don't receive much federal or state funding at all compared to what we do.
Mm-hmm.
So we're always reliant, and we make a point of when we have visiting politicians, no matter what side of politics they're from, we make a point of thanking them for their contribution because not often do politicians get thanked, but we would be lost without state and federal funding.
Mm. Well, probably a bit off the subject, but still roads. As great as Tonkin Highway is now, going to Metro, you can tell the point where regional starts on the condition of that road.
That's right.
So, you know, maybe our regional need to have a bit more of a voice and put their hand up to say we deserve better. Because it's a definite change in the surface of the road and the quality of the road. And I think, we're in regional, more, you know, country now.
And look, we as a Shire make sure we get our traffic counters out, because when we think a road is getting more traffic than what Main Roads thinks, we put the traffic counters out. They don't lie. So then we can go back to them, and we've got an increase in traffic on this road. So we are seeking more funding to upgrade the road, or it's not handling the traffic.
So the Shire does that, do it?
Absolutely, with that. Yep. And that information nowadays is so much more accurate. Time of day, speed, weight, it's all calculated.
Yep.
Which is so it sort of can't be tampered with.
Yep.
Any other questions? Yes, please.
Gertrude from Mora. I've got 3 properties in Mora, and one's on Clark Street. And I would just like to see, with paying rates, if something could be done up that area with the curbing. The drainage is disgusting. When we have a really heavy downfall, all those properties are flooded. The water is not getting away. It needs to be run to the river. That is totally blocked off. Something needs to be done about it. And I pay rates and I expect something to be done.
Thank you, Joe. We are constantly working on our roads, not only in the town but other parts of the Shire as well. And yes, Councillor Hamilton has been on, has worked or has mentioned this as much as anyone. So we realise the problem, and we would love to put a footpath and drainage in every street in every town in the Shire and make it absolutely smicko. We will get there one day, but it's going to take us a while.
No disrespect either, but my eldest girl's 32 now, and the Shire's been saying that for 32 years. When they walking to town, I was in town, I wasn't out of town, but trying to walk with prams, there's no footpaths, and there's still no footpaths. So that's 32 years.
It's incredibly dangerous up that road when the sun is setting and people are walking. Someone is going to get hurt. It's really dangerous. I don't even let my kids, or when they were kids, ride bikes to school or walk because it was just too dangerous.
Point taken. We'll keep investing as much as we can.
I guess it's really hard, but I do wonder how things are prioritised. You know, for us to be able to say, you know, for that many years, we've been told we're getting more footpaths and the drainage is going to get better for the whole town. It's been a long time, so I just don't know how things are prioritised. I understand it's a bit of a juggling hat. There's probably never enough money, but how long?
It is. I'll get the same calls from residents on the outer parts of the Shire complaining about their roads, and exactly like you're complaining about your footpath. It's just a matter of us having the money to get there, and it is frustrating. It is frustrating. If we get a big rain in some parts of the Shire, some people will get bogged on their roads, which is not sustainable. It's just not good enough for the rates they're paying. So,
well, I know Webb Street now, isn't that? You can't drive down there, can you?
Webb Street,
And local traffic.
Only
local
local traffic.
because of the river.
Yes.
So we'll probably never get a bridge there. We probably need to make a causeway there, which is concrete, so it allows the water to flow. And in winter, we'll probably have to close it if we get big rains.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Yes.
So Jack Van Voss, Freeman A Street Mora. First question's in relation to the new borrowings on 26-27. That's at $1.24 million for the recreation centre. Can you clarify what that's actually going to fund to do at the recreation centre. The second question is in relation to the Morris Central Bushfire Brigade. I know in previous budgets there's been exploration, I don't know whether there's been any funding expended to look at a co-located facility for our fire rescue and our bushfire brigade. I just want to know if there's any progress on that or if there's any funding allocated as part of the 26-27 budget. And my third question would be how much has the Shire received on the local government grant scheme funding from DFS for our bushfire brigade and SCS as part of the 26-27 budget?
Thank you, Jack, for those questions. Gavin, can I ask you about funding the rec centre? We do have it on the budget.
The rec centre project is on the budget. That will continue to be subject to funding from government primarily. We anticipate when that project is kicked off, if it is kicked off, it will require the Shire to find somewhere in the order of $1.2 to $1.5 million as co-funding, and we don't have that at this stage. It's a related project in the budget because we do represent to government for funding for it. In terms of the co-located emergency services centre, that again is a bit of a problem because we don't have the money we want. We know that the government is talking about it, but we haven't had any commitment whatsoever at this stage from the government. But we'll continue to push that because we think that's an important project. And the DFS funding, I'm not too sure about. I can't give you the exact amount, but do you?
I don't know anything about it.
No, we have,
Oh, sorry.
sorry. So we have been allocated around 80,000 for the LGTS and the DPS, and that around 1,800,000 from SES.
Answer your questions, Jack? Sort of. Thank you. Any other questions?
I'd just like to go back to the rec centre.
Yes.
So how does the process work? Because I think a lot of the community are under the impression that a grant was already approved for the Shire. And obviously things take time, you need to draw up plans, but surely the Shire wouldn't have got to the stage they did with it, spending money on architecture, plans, all of that time for trying to get grants, go towards it, if they weren't in some position to do something about it. Because to me, and maybe I'm ignorant to it all, but to me that seems such a waste of time, effort and money if they're not in any position to be able to move forward with it. Does that make sense?
It does. I think Gavin could probably answer that better than anyone.
We did develop an extensive plan for the centre. We invested a reasonable amount of money in it. We spent about $35,000 developing the plan. And we had to do that to be in place to get them to start. So we didn't have that as a case of don't bother applying. So we did those things necessary. We made a commitment to the community, which we felt we needed to support and uphold. We put the plan together when the plan was recosted as a result of us not receiving the first round grants. The cost of the project was almost double what it was originally, just through cost escalations, and we felt that we still needed to push it, which we did, and which we still do. But as a result of that, it had reduced the amount of money that was available to us, and the grant that we had secured was also reduced because of cost escalations. And so as time went on, the greater the cost escalation, less money was available to us. And so we ended up in a state whereby we had a pending grant, which we still have, but we don't have anywhere near the money we need to co-contribute to the building of that facility. And it's still on the books, it's still waiting, but we need probably around $3 million from the state government to get that project up and running. And we need to find at least $1 million for the Shire.
And it has to be on our budget for us to be able to get funding. We can't just apply for funding without it being on our budget.
Mm.
So
And it's a competitive bid, so once you get yourself onto the bid platform, you need to stay there with reasonably current plans.
So is there any way, could the Shire maybe look at changing the complex to some degree to make it a less price,
We have done that.
or to prioritise and get, like someone said, at least the change rooms done? I don't know.
And that's what we have done. We've changed the scope of the project. It's been significantly detuned, but we're still waiting on sufficient money to come through to give us the Shire branded money to co-contribute to the project. There are lots of levels of the funding equation that need to be met.
Sounds, hopeless.
One more question. So you've got it here, range and saying a further 9.2 is allocated to land and buildings, including 3.4 million for the rec centre. Is there anything that can be taken away from other buildings and land and put forward to getting that particular project done?
I don't believe there is, because those other projects are already earmarked and part funded.
Can I ask who they are?
Housing for Wakes.
WA Country Health Services. Yeah, I thought we had them. Aren't they over in?
We haven't finished. Yeah, that project's got a reasonable way to go at this stage.
Thank you.
So further to your question, Jen, if the Shire has to show a contribution in order to get on the government radar to get funding, that all takes time. And in that time and process, costs go up. Is it going to be that we're forever chasing a tail?
I think that's the most likely proposition.
So the opportunity to scale back, if it's the funding is percentage based, if you scale back a project, you reduce the cost there, or you're still scaling back percentage of grant funding. So you're still going to have the same percentage of gap. Yeah, the gap might be smaller on a dollar value, but from a percentage value, it would still be a gap.
We're chasing our tail. There's definitely no doubt about it.
Absolutely.
The proposition for us that makes most sense and is most likely, if it becomes available, is Commonwealth money, because it does not require us to make a co-contribution.
So how as a community, how can we chase that funding? What do you need from us?
I think
One, it needs to be like, said, look, hey, Gold Stars, and this is available, we have to then fight everyone else for it.
Exactly.
Is there currently funding on the table that we can access, and how do we as a community help access that?
well,
Or are
again,
we waiting for next year's round of Gold Stars?
we're waiting for next year's round of Gold Stars, because not unlike what happened with we've got the secondary freight network, funding was taken out of the budget this year. So that money just disappeared. The Commonwealth removed from from its budget the local roads and community infrastructure funding, which for us had been a critical part of our funding over a 4-year period. So out of that, as a consequence, we lost $14 million going forward, or the opportunity to access $14 million. And we're now waiting for that element of the budget to come back onto.
So do we as a community have an insight on what Commonwealth will have for next year's focus and buzzwords?
No, we don't. We wait for the Commonwealth to make those announcements.
Okay, so we don't have any spies anywhere who can say, you know, this is going to be what their focus is for the next 1 to 3 years when the next government comes in, and then we can start formulating a plan for that.
We wait on the budget. The Commonwealth budget is critical to us in that sense.
So is it up to us to start speaking to our representatives on the Commonwealth?
Absolutely, definitely encourage you to do that.
And we as a Shire will always do that and do it often.
But you're one voice amongst many.
That's right.
Absolutely.
As we as a community know, when everybody talks together.
But the community voice is stronger than ours anyway, because it's the community representation that is most impactful with government. We do that, but we nag at government all of the time. So I get sick of hearing us, but if it's the community that's doing the representation, it's much stronger.
Just one thing, Gavin, we've had success with with visits to the Australian Local Government Association conferences and direct pathways to people in government, which has enabled us to secure funding for projects that we would not have got otherwise. So would you like to talk of maybe 2 or 3 of those projects that we've been successful in?
Thank you. Well, we have secured substantial money through the Australian local government meetings that we attend on an annual basis. So we've picked up $2 million for the aerodrome. Picked up nearly $5 million for the Early Childhood Development Centre and the Childcare Centre. And we also picked up a substantial sum of money for the sewage upgrade and pumps, and substantial additional sums of money for roads. So in that space, we've probably collected roughly $8 million.
Could you just highlight the visit we had from a federal minister last year?
We had Kirsty McBain, the Minister for Local Government and Emergency Services and Municipal Services, visit us last year to look at the Early Childhood Development Centre and the Childcare Centre. And she's the minister that gave us basically the $8 million. So keen to see the aerodrome, keen to see the work that we've done on the dams, keen to see the work that we were doing in respect of focusing on how, as a Shire, we can build long-term infrastructure. It was not short-term infrastructure, but it was also geared to meeting the needs of the community. And it was a great visit. Probably would have been equally valuable last year had it not been for the government's changing of powers around the way in which the way in which longer term projects were being funded. That's no longer the case. So we're on a shorter list, both for consideration and for development of projects.
So the Shire hasn't been sitting on its hands. It's been actively advocating for the funds, which are very hard to secure. So it means that shires like Goomalling or Paynes or Sandstone or something missed out because it was allocated to us too. So it's got to be spread across 500 local governments throughout Australia. So when you get the funding is, and certainly it's 200 state local governments too. So we're only one voice amongst many. So we have to put a very, very strong case. And we were very fortunate that we had the funding. So if you think of when I first came onto council, the daycare centre that we had was struggling to house 30 children. And now we've got a daycare centre that's got 60 children. We have people writing and saying that I want care for my child. I want to be able to work and I can't get in. So now that's a different scenario altogether. So that's one real success for the community. Yep.
Can I also add, when Minister McBain visited last year to WA, we were the only regional shire she visited. So that was testament to the council at the time of getting her to come up and look at these projects and keep funding them. So we'll continue that work on because we realise we've got lots of projects in the shire that we'd like to start and complete.
No, I appreciate that everybody's chasing the same dollar and every dollar has to count.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
Just, why didn't change you guys during the budget so we don't have such a rate increase in the times that we are in at the moment?
Could you say the start of that question again? Sorry.
Is there any chance there can be some trimming of your budget so that we are not, you know, putting extra pressure on the people that are actually struggling at these times in the community? And I mean struggling.
It is a balancing act. So we are trying, we're always trying to balance our budget.
Yeah, it'd be nice if it be snipped or something, but all necessities could be snipped. Bit way of putting it. I'd like to ask a question about the rates. Last year, well, previous years, we have a pool in our property, and every year the Shire would do inspections, and you get a fee charge for that, and you pay that. Last year, they changed it where we're paying. I did ask someone about, I think it was Stephanie, I did ask her about this and I did get an answer, but I didn't like the answer. Because what they're doing is charging a fee, but only inspecting the pool once every 3 years. So we're getting charged more than what we were before for a yearly inspection. But they're only inspecting the pool once every 3 years. We're getting charged more for something. Thirdly.
I have knowledge of that.
I don't have an answer, but I'll look at it for you and get back.
Well, what she said to me was they were just coming up to speed as to what they should have been charging. And it didn't sit well with me because I said, I've had this house with a pool for over 12 years, and you're telling me that for over 12 years, you've been undercharging for the inspection of the pools. So I said, you know, how does that happen? So what she's saying is they put it up to move in line with what it should be, because it was being undercharged, and that's why it's so much more. But only doing the once every 3 years, because I could be wrong, was it Dawn Ardley doing them? And they couldn't warrant paying that person to go once a year to do the inspections, like, you know, money wise, it wasn't worth that person's pay, I suppose, to do it once a year.
That's not a consideration, but I mean, it sounds odd to me, and I'm not questioning you at all.
No.
I've not heard that story, so I do need to go back and find out what.
These inspections aren't something that the council makes up. These are foisted on us by the state government. The state is, instead of undertaking those building and health inspections, instead of taking them on themselves, they push them onto local government to do. So the number of inspections that are required, that's set by the state. The amount that's charged, it's set by the state. That's not something that we make up. That's something that is handed to us by the state government that we implement on their behalf. It's not something that's a discretionary for us on how often we can or must inspect and how much we can charge for those. That they are state set requirements built in state legislation. They're really not discretionary by Moira Shire in any way.
So you're saying for the 12 years plus prior to this, the yearly charge we were getting charged was nothing to do with the Shire, but all of a sudden the state that charged it have decided to do that.
No, I'm not saying all of a sudden anything, but I'm sure. I'd need to check, but I am very sure, but you know, I can't swear in blood, but that inspection fees for swimming pools and the number and type of inspections, they are coming out of state legislation. That they are not items that are set by Moira Shire.
So does the Shire think that it's acceptable that a pool only gets inspected once every 3 years? that's something that they're happy with, because I just think the reason why you do pool inspections is for the safety of the property. What happens in the 2 years that it's not inspected with the dilapidation of fences or broken fences or whatever, and
The bottom line responsibility for fences is the property owner. To put that as as a responsibility for the Shire, that, you know, the bottom line responsibility for keeping your pool safe as a property owner is you. It's a safety net that the state requires shires to check on it. But that doesn't transfer the responsibility to the
so
Shire.
it's the Shire's responsibility that the fences are kept in good shape and not broken. But it's the Shire's responsibility, well, not mine, whose is it? Someone's responsibility to inspect them. So it's the Shire's responsibility to inspect them. And I just wonder whether once every 3 years is enough. That's all.
We'll take your question on notice.
Thank you.
And we'll get back to you.
I appreciate
And
that.
we'll alert this of a possible problem.
Yep.
And we'll try and get to the bottom.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, please.
Just wanting to understand what this jurisdiction site has over private property in the area. When I drive around on a Sunday looking for property to buy for myself and my family to expand into a better home, I drive around and see quite a lot of untidiness around the place. Abandoned cars parked on median strips and in the middle of roads, etc. And you know, to Deb's point earlier, houses that are abandoned and falling down, and a house next door to us with 19 cats residing in it. We mostly want to not invest my money in a town that I feel is not as presentable as it used to be. And when I understand, you know, although I haven't lived in other places, I understand in other shires, I presume Perth and so on, you get a notice from the shire asking you to sort it out, and if not, there's consequences. Is that sort of thing happening around town? And what is the Shire doing to keep up with the presentation?
Thanks for your question, Callum. Can you
Yes,
enlarge on that?
we do issue notices, we do pursue them, and we do take enforcement action where that's possible. And we'll continue to do that.
It is time consuming and it can be expensive, and it's something that we would love to be fixed sooner than later.
In general, council responds to complaints from members of the public. So if you notice something and you don't make a complaint in writing to council about that, there is some onus on you to actually bring that to attention to council. If you bring it to attention to council in writing to suggest something specific, you will get a response from council in terms of at least where that's up to. So if you really are concerned about specific items, and to say that Moora is dilapidated and Moora has a cat problem is not necessarily untrue. But what is useful to the Shire of Moora is specific to say this specific property is causing a specific problem because there is an abandoned vehicle exactly here. That is something that we can deal with a lot better than Moora is nowhere near as good now as it was 5 years ago. So please, put something in writing to us if you see something that you believe requires attention.
Sorry, on the back of that, are you saying 5 years ago there was more complaints and it was actually?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying I'm hearing from you that Moora isn't what it was years ago, but the Shire of Moora finds it very difficult to respond to that as a complaint. Whereas if you were to say that this abandoned vehicle in this particular spot is an issue, that is something that we can sink our teeth into and do something.
Well, I think Helen's saying.
Sorry, Deb, you had your hand up first. It's actually question time, not discussion time, so I'm looking for questions.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
Bob Hoogland, Deputy CEO.
Okay, yeah, as discussed earlier. I've looked online to understand the legislative requirements for a shire, how they respond to complaints and the process for that. And there doesn't seem to be, maybe I'm looking in the wrong spot, but there doesn't seem to be a place where it says, okay, we receive the complaint here, we get a percentage of complaints, maybe we do this, then we escalate to this. After this time frame, we escalate to this. Is there legislation that I can read that gives definitive timeframes? Because my son has made numerous complaints and his neighbours have made numerous complaints through the Shire emails. And whilst there has been some input and feedback, it always appears to be we're working on it. And I understand you are bound by law. And I'm just wondering, what is that law and where can I research that matter?
Bob, can you elaborate on that, please?
In general terms, there is no overarching legislation that requires specific timeframes. Each council, depending on its resources, can determine appropriate timeframes. But in general, the approach is a request for service. So let's say I have noticed a pothole here. I would like that to be filled. That is a request for service, and it generally would get a response. Either it's filled and you're advised that it's been filled, or the response could be, look, we haven't got a budget for that, but it's been put in the budget for next year or something like that. So you would get a response like that. If you don't get a response, the next step up, we would call a complaint. And that's when you would contact council and say, I put in a request for service for this to happen. I have not had a satisfactory complaint. And so that would then go to someone else. So that would go to someone like me to address as a complaint as opposed to a request for service. So that's two different things. Again, there's no specific legislative time frame, but yeah, and again, if it goes to that level and you don't get an adequate response, that's when you might take it to the CEO, or you might take it to your elected member and say, look, here's my list of complaints. And then you always have the option of going to, and generally it would be the Ombudsman, if you're having issues with a local government and you've got a list of emails or responses and you're satisfied that is completely inadequate, you can go to someone like the Ombudsman and say, look, here's what I've tried to do, and this is what council has done. Can you do something about jumping on them? And that is, so that's the again, there's no legislative time frames anywhere around those. The standard is generally what a reasonable person would expect, and a couple of weeks is obviously okay. A couple of months would generally be seen as not okay. So it's what a reasonable person would expect. But that's the way to go, is request for service. If that's not happening properly, a complaint. And say it's always important to put it in writing. Don't just make a phone call, because that trail of correspondence is what you can then take to Ombudsman and say, this is the runaround I'm getting from this local government. What can you do about it for me?
So when a member of the public uses the Shire's complaint pages, like you can log in and type your things.
Yes.
Does that, I haven't seen what my son's received back, does that automatically generate a response email back to you to say we have received and words of? Or would it be better for a PDF to be attached to that if possible, or something to go in the mail? Because I'm wondering how a Shire, not necessarily the Shire, any Shire who uses that functionality, collates the number of complaints pertaining to one particular matter.
I think it depends on the resources of the Shire, but Shire of Laura doesn't make any particular statistical track what we've tried to do. But as I say, if you've got a specific request and nothing's happened, then yeah,
That's why I sent that tonight.
yeah, okay, yeah,
Yeah, it's not good.
yeah. Well, as I say, I don't think it's for a public question time. It's definitely
So Deb, we'll try and respond to all emails. And if you, thank you. So we are here to work with the community.
And I invite any councillor to drive past.
Thank you. Any other questions? There's no more questions. We will move on to item 5, applications for leave of absence, which
if you haven't put your name on the list as a visitor, can you please do that for us? Thank you.
thanks, Dominic. No applications, leave of absence. Item 6, reports of officers, 6.1.1, sale of land, lot 2005 Atborough Street. The author of the attachment is our CEO, Gavin Robbins. Gavin, before we ask for a mover or seconder, could you just give us a quick rundown on this, please?
Certainly. This paper addresses the sale of lot 2005 36 Atborough Street. There's a bit of history to this sale. In May 2026, council received an offer of $85,000 for the purchase of lot 2005 Atborough Street from the 2 potential buyers. Sometime later, the buyers advised council that the offer lapsed because they had not been able to secure the funding for purchase. Subsequently, on the 17th of July, a fresh offer was made for the purchase of lot 2005 Atborough Street. The offer of $80,000 was made from 2 people in Wanneroo. The lot was formerly lot 46 prior to a recent uniform renumbering system and correction undertaken by the Department of Lands and Planning. The offer by the proponents closely aligned with the listed price of $85,000. Under local government laws, the Shire is required to advertise the potential sale of this land if it is proposing to sell it. And the Shire, of course, wishes to sell this land because it's worth a reasonable sum of money, and it also helps continue the development that we are running in the Cockatoo Place area. We have recommended that the Shire accept an offer of $82,500, and that the advertisement of the potential sale of the land proceed. And our recommendation is that, and the Shire's recommendation is that council approve the statutory public notice of the respective sale of lot 2005 Atborough Street in accordance with the Local Government Act. And the second recommendation is that council approve, subject to the expiry of the public notice period and consultation with the public, the sale of lot 2005 Atborough Street on terms suitable to and the Shire for no less than $82,500.
Thank you, Gavin. I was going to read the recommendation out, but you did it for me. All good. Thank you. Is there a mover for that recommendation, please? Councillor Gilbert, thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Phillips, thank you. Councillor Gilbert, like to speak for or against?
Definitely for, and I think it's, close to the original one, which was good. And I think, with the value of land probably maybe sliding a little bit, it's probably a good sale.
Yeah, Councillor Phillips. Like anything else just for? Anyone like to speak against the motion? No, that being the case, we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimously. Item 6.2.1, 2026-2027 budget adoption. We have 2 authors, Travis Bate, RSM, and JZ, Manager of Financial Services. The authors, Travis, can I just get some comments off you first, please, and then Jose might try you as well.
So the budget as presented, it's been through three workshops with council in the development of the budget. So it's been developed in line with what's been presented previously and feedback that's been through that process. It is a balance in terms of what we need to do under the Act to make sure that it's a balanced position at the end of the financial year. And as was mentioned in the public question time, majority of the capital items are tied to grant funding for the year. And there's not much money there's no money that's put aside to reserves at all in this budget. So it is a, what's the right word for it?
Not negotiable.
No, that's not the one. There's not a lot of anything in there that isn't already committed to.
Thank you, Travis. Jose, you got anything to add?
I think apart from what we have discussed through the public questions as well, I just wanted to mention that the increase on the employees, it's also offset by the decrease on materials and contracts. So this is one of the highlights of the budgets as well, in terms of getting that balancing. So when we talk about the revenue in rates, so that's going to be split around the whole Shire. So we don't get a revenue and apply to a single project. So this is not how we look into it, but just making that point as well. And I think the other part of the budget is within the 2.7 million capital program, 9.4 it's being allocated through funding. So just saying that the majority of our capital program right now is being funded by either state or Commonwealth funds.
Thank you, Jose. If councillors, there's a lengthy recommendation there, which I can read out, but we have had 3 workshops, so I probably don't feel as though that's totally necessary. So before we can discuss it further as council, is there a mover for that recommendation, please? Councillor Gilbert, thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Hamilton, thank you. Councillor Gilbert, would I speak for or against? Thank you. No other comment?
No, I just think it's, it's a balanced budget. We, had to come up that rate to, get to that balanced budget.
Thank you. Councillor Hamilton, might speak for or against?
For.
Thank you. Anyone like to speak against the recommendation? Councillor Dugan.
Thank you. I believe that at 6.5%, we could do some trimming and bring it back down or closer to the 5. Ideally, I'd love to be even less than that, but I think 5 is, I guess, a bit more acceptable to people around the table. I've been looking at some line items, specifically around the budget for things like employee costs and stuff like that. We're looking at this year alone having a $638,000 increase to the employee costs. Over the past 5 years, we've had a 41.66% increase in cost for employee costs. However, the relative wages have only gone up by 20.3%. So whether that's expansion with other roles and stuff like that, and this is our budgeting, not our actual. So this is what we've been planning for on our employees, extra employees and stuff like that. My thoughts is, can some of these positions that we're trying to fill or something like that, can some of their responsibilities be put over to, other roles and other staff to try and bring down those employee costs and the expansion on that? I'm not sure if it is in there, but I haven't been able to see anywhere the traded value for the grader being put in if we do get the loan under the budget. Which is another $160,000, I believe, is cash injection. We just passed the motion for another $80,000 on the sale of Atborough Street. Reducing it by that 1.5% is only $75,000 to $80,000 needing to be saved. If people vote against this motion, I'd like to put up another motion that we go with the original 5% modelling or adjust the current budget to a 5%.
Thank you, councillor Dugan. You've spoken against the motion. Would anyone else like to speak for the motion? You've seconded it. Anyone else seconded for?
No.
Sorry, my mistake. Yes, councillor Phillips.
I made to say something while the great deal of discussion was had on this, and we're looking at the average local government rise is between 5.5 and 6.8, and we are on the higher end of that, and that's covering all local governments. The 6.5 was arrived at after quite considerable debate with us, and it was held over. We talked about the Reserve Bank indications on inflation, and it was a decision taken that this 6.5 would be taken. But looking at this as being one thing that we do for this financial year, but in any essence to try and bring it back the following. Will this be practical? It remains to be told. I'll put one thing though that is quite interesting. The Victorian government, Labor government, capped local government rate rises at 2.7%. Now that's like King Canute trying to stop the tide. But again, that's the Victorian government and the way they perceive things. Is 6.5 high? Yeah, it is. But if it can be capped only at the 1 year and then looked at responsibly for the following financial year, I think we are doing justice to what's been decided.
Thank you, councillor Phillips. Anyone else like to speak against the motion? So I've spoken once, so we'll stick to standing orders. Anyone likes to speak against the motion? Councillor James?
First, I don't want to discredit the work that has gone into getting budget and spreadsheets sort of lined up where they are. But sort of, as I've said in the workshops, obviously we've got a community that's doing it tough. Cost of living's gone up. The fuel excise has now gone. Fuel's continued to go up again. I think for what the community will get out of the 6.5 rate increase, I don't think it's in their best interest to go with that. Because we stick with the 5%, at least they get that little, or a lower rate, whatever it is. They get that little bit of reprieve this year. We can have a budget review, look at how things are going, and take on board what the community is wanting to plan for the future. You know, if we stick with the 6.5%, we do have capital projects and things going, but there's nothing extra, no extra benefits they'll be getting for paying extra. I just don't think it's in their best interest to pursue.
So you're speaking against the motion. Anyone else like to speak for the motion? No, that being the case, I'll ask the mover to close debate, please. Councillor Gilbert?
I'll close the debate, move that.
Nothing to add?
No, I need to say that I agree with Councillor to Alan as in regards to this is at 6.5 is only just for this budget year. We review it again when it comes next budget year, and no doubt if we can find any savings, of course we will try and make sure we do that. I don't think 6.5 will stay there forever. We don't want it to, but you know, it gets reviewed every year, as it should be.
Thank you, Councillor Gilbert, as the mover for the motion. Therefore, I can read the motion out, but we have had 3 workshops. I probably don't think, as I said before, that's necessary. So therefore, there's an officer recommendation there. We'll put that to the vote. All those in favour for the recommendation? And against? It's 4-3. That's carried. Yes, carried. Thank you. We will move on to item 7, new business of an urgent nature introduced by decision of council. Yes. Which we don't have any. Item 8 is matters for which the meeting may be closed. Yeah. Sorry,
See the budget required. An absolute majority, it doesn't.
Simple majority.
Simple majority.
That's still, okay, sorry.
All right. So we are going, so we've had matters for the which meeting may be closed. So we'll repeat that again. There are none. Right. Therefore, item 9 is closure of meeting. I'd like to declare the meeting closed at, what's the time, Gavin?
6:40.
16:40. Thank you very much for your attendance. Thank you very much for the public. And if you could please make sure your name's signed there, please, and address. Thank you.